We all set?
Yep.
All right. Hello, everybody, even though I can see that there's actually nobody there yet today, which is fine because we've got a lot of issues on the forums that I'm eager to address so that you can get going and submit your final portfolio for the capstone. I know this is week 6. People have been working really hard on their portfolios. And I just want to say that as you're going through, as you're submitting, as you're peer reviewing, remember what the entire motivation for this specialization has been. And that's been for you to gain the confidence and the experience to create something either completely on your own or using a template that you're now able to go in and update and change and play with. Hopefully you've also developed some sort of appreciation for what goes into making a web page, what goes into making a web page be accessible, and all those little tiny things. I hope you also realize that no matter what field you're going into, maybe you're into the humanities or you're into completely outdoor activities, no matter what you're doing, knowing just a little bit more about technology can hopefully make whatever you do a little bit easier or a little bit more fun. So we have a few people. Let me just click over to the chat so I can see. So how do we get to the chat somewhere? Oh, okay. There we go. So morning, Melissa, Pam, Sandhya. Hopefully I got that correct. Sandia. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Like I said, I'm from the Midwest. I'm good with Bob and Dan. Everything else, I promise I will try. So it does look like we have someone who has a few questions ready. And I will try to ignore the fact that what I see on the screen doesn't match what I'm actually doing at the moment. But if you had a couple and you wanted to type them in, I'm happy to get started. And for anybody who's online at any point, go ahead and type your question in. I'll be going back and forth from this type of chat, going back to the discussion forums, and occasionally using CodePen and different things like that to look at code. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the discussion section then just for a second. Sai, can we switch over to that screen?
And we can go. And talk real quick.
Just going to check and make sure we got sound. Excellent. Okay. I'm going to go through. Okay. And so when I look at the screen, it's mirror image to me. Just so you. There we go. Okay. Oh, yeah, there we go. Just going to go ahead and go through and look at a few of the discussions that are there on the screen. One was just go in and check your week 2 assignments. I'll make sure the grader and I go in. If something isn't graded by the end of this week, we'll definitely make sure we have one more forum where we kind of clear out who's having troubles. But what I do appreciate is that this student went back. I know that he posted yesterday that it hadn't been graded yet, and I hadn't gotten to it. But he came back and he posted which submission he put it into. So if you remember, we have our from scratch, our template, our frameworks. If you can tell us where we should be looking, that's the best way for us to go. Okay. I think the rest of those are a little bit older, so I'll go back to the next question. Let's go right here because I've noticed that there have been a few people who've had a similar issue when you're trying to submit your final portfolio. And this is so important, and it happens so often that I'm going to send out an email later today to address it. But when you submit your assignment, we want to give people multiple options. So a URL or video or screenshots. The downfall of trying to give people options is that there are a few things you need to do. And one of those is that even if you are not hosting your site, you need to put a URL. You need to put something in the URL frame. So Melissa here put something. You can put in HTTP, fakeurl.com, dummy URL. You can put anything you want, and just as long as you make it clear to the student that it is not a real website that someone wants to look at. Okay. So I'm going to go back here, and we're going to click to the week 6 office hours. Okay. Okay, so luckily, what I've learned as a teacher is the more you just wait, the more students kind of figure it out on themselves. But I appreciate when people put up their questions and then still leave it up there later after they've solved it, because it helps the other students realize, like, oh, I'm not the only one who's had that issue. Even better is when you figure out that answer, if you can put what you did to fix it, because that can help people out as well. What the issue probably was going on right here was that it's very important that in your HTML, inside a single tag, you never have class equals something and then the word class equals something again. Sometimes people get a little bit confused and they think if they're going to have two classes, let's say red and fancy, that they have to say class equals red and then class equals fancy. And that's not the case. The validator will get very upset with you if you don't simply put class equals red space fancy. Okay. Pam wrote a question about having a little bit of issues with her light box. And again, another student jumped in and said, hey, I looked at your code, and not only did you look at Pam's code, which is awesome, you went in and you ran it through the validator. Going through the validator, this is exactly why I encourage people to do this. Because even though your site might look perfect, it looks just the way you want it to look, there are sometimes little things underneath there that you can't see. So in this case, there was an extra tag kind of floating around, or I think maybe a missing end tag or an extra start tag. And those tags can really throw things off when you're trying to do JavaScript or positioning things. So that was a really great job of not only posting this question, but looking at it. And I did want to show it. Sai, is it good to go full screen or no?
Yeah, I mean, we can do that.
Actually, wait. I can keep it in this same one. Give me 1 second. This one will work right here.
Okay.
What we were looking at was when you're looking at people's sites, don't forget not only to look at them, but kind of click around and move things around. So I'm going to click here, and you can see that there's a light box included. And this looks really good, but once again, I'm going to move my mouse around, and when I move the mouse, I can see that now I have these arrows. So I can click through and look at the different images. So hopefully the students who are submitting this are putting into their write-up, hey, make sure you click on my images, or make sure you resize on this page. It looks really cool. But even if they don't have a chance, it's always nice if you kind of explore and see what different people are doing. This is why we have multiple people look at your site, because each one might see something different or appreciate something different. Okay. All right, I'm going to go down to the next one here. So I think it's, and I feel bad, I never know if it's Jean or Jeannie, but I'm pretty sure it's Jean, because I see you posting all the time and you're always helping people out, which I appreciate. We have to limit the number of things that we can upload to the machine. Otherwise, people have to put fake uploads, and there's no way to say unlimited uploads for your submission. I've noticed that you're using CodePen, and because you're using CodePen, you're actually giving people the opportunity to interact with your screen, so people can resize it. They can look at the different views. So as long as in your write-up you say, hey, I've got 3 views, and here's what changes, you won't really need to include those screenshots. If you do want to include multiple screenshots, the idea of including them, putting them in a PDF file, and uploading that one PDF file is the way to go. All right, this next one is a great question because, one, it shows that you took that extra step, that you're concerned with making your website accessible. What the student has done is they've taken their site and they've put it through the Wave validator. And normally by default, it shows your style, like any errors with your styles. In this case, they've jumped over and they're looking at the contrast page. I have never, ever seen a single page that has any type of color that has passed the contrast checker. So do not worry about this issue right here. Kind of have some friends eyeball it, take a look at it, but there's no way that you can truly pass the contrast checker unless you go way above and beyond anything that would be expected for this class. It's even goes above and beyond what many people in professional web development sites make. So do not worry about the contrast checker in the accessibility. Okay. All right. So again, I'm going to send out an email because this question is so prevalent and it makes sense. I had the same error when I was trying to do fake submissions at the beginning. You need to put something in every single place where it's prompting you, or at least you need to put something in the link. So put a fake URL, a dummy URL. Don't worry, we won't click on it. If people do click on it, though, make sure it's something that's not offensive or anything like that. But if you can make a fake one, that's the best way to go. Okay. All right, I'm going to head over to the chat for just a second. Okay.
Putting it back on screen.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
There you go.
All right. So that first question, actually, hopefully you just heard my answer where it says item contents requires JSON comes up when I try to submit my link. Guess the question is, are you putting something in each of the places that's being required? You can upload, fake documents. You can link to like a fake URL. As long as you make it clear, it's perfectly fine if you're only using one way to submit your portfolio, particularly when it's a link, because people can follow it along, whether it's a link to your own domain or to CodePen, anything like that. But it is important that you make it so that you have something in each one of them. All right. Is there a size limit for the file, i.e. a PDF, when we upload our final assignment? There is one. I cannot remember what it is. So it's okay if this disappears from the screen. I'm going to go ahead and check something real quick as I go here, because I never know what's going to pop up when I open up a new screen. So give me 1 second here for Sarah. I'll check out Dr. Chuck's auto grader to see if he has something in the notes about what you can and can't do. So week 6. Open tool. Sorry, let's just take a second. It needs to be under, so images need to be under 1 megabyte in size and must be a JPEG or a PNG. So that's something you want to look for. If you have a PDF, the question is, I will look into that and see if it will accept a PDF, and if not, where we can try to put that so that people can still access it. Okay, go back here. Okay. All right, so we have another question here where the CSS works well for Edge, but Chrome ignores any changes I make. That is a very interesting problem. I haven't seen that very much. Do you have a link to your page so we can take a look at it? That might be a great thing to put on the forum. Include the link to your code, and then that way we can get a whole group of people, some of it looking on Chrome, some on Firefox, Edge. I'm not sure I even have Edge on this computer. These aren't mine. I'm in the studio, and we can take a look at it. But it would be odd that for your CSS not to work. If you could let us know if it's some subset of your CSS, maybe some sort of gradient or columns, or if just all the CSS doesn't work. We definitely want to take a look at that. Okay. Okay. So Melissa's answered the one about you have to do JPEG or PNG, which will make it very difficult if you've done a big write-up. So I'm going to send out an email today, and when I send out that email about making sure you have something for each part, I happen to know Chuck's right nearby. We'll talk to him and see what we can do about making sure that you get a chance to really show off your page and all the work that you've been doing.
So
all right.
What is Sandia asking?
She said she's hosted the site. Could you give us the link to your site, Sandia? If so, I might be able to open it up right now, and I can open it up in Chrome, and we can see, why in the heck isn't it working when really your CSS should work everywhere. Let's take a look. I will In the meantime, while you're posting your link, I'm going to go ahead and jump back over to the forums because there was one thing I kind of wanted to help somebody with right here. Can we switch to do the entire screen? Because I'm going to be using a special editor.
Watch out, don't move.
Okay.
Oh, 1 second. Present to everyone. Okay.
All right, so the next question I was going to get to, and we should double check that sound is still working here for people.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait 1 second and see if people can still hear me.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, great. Just making sure. All right, so this was one of the earlier questions. I'm not going to look for it. Well, I can look for it for just a second. But I just kept it up here. It was nav text huge on the mobile device. And so I wanted to take a look at this one. And again, it kind of always helps when you include a link. So I went here to the Rocket League fan site, which both of us were agreeing before class started, office hours started. This is very cool. I like it quite a bit. And so the question was, well, it looks great here. He wasn't happy with the mobile view. So I'm going to inspect here. And I'm going to drag this over, and I'm going to click on the small option where I can see in the different viewports. So here it is on the iPhone. Actually, let's see if I can get this. So here's the Galaxy. I noticed on the iPad it looked fine, but on the iPhone, the font just seemed a little bit too big. It was kind of overwhelming what was going on. So if I go here, and I did another right click real quick, I looked on and I kind of took a quick look at Inspect Element. And there is no type of styling for the font on in the center class. All right, so that was the first thing it checks. And then it checked the paragraph class. There's nothing about font size in here either. Continue to go down. Again, more. And then down here in the body section, I can see that the font size is being inherited from the body, because how it works, it says, hey, is there any styling on this particular class that I'm using on the paragraph? Nope. Okay, let's see if there's any particular styling for a paragraph. No, not here. So then it goes and it looks at the paragraph's parent, or whatever tag it's inside. So this is inside the body tag. And if you go here, you can see that you've set your font size to 1.2 em. So I'm going to unclick that for just a second. You can see it does get smaller. It's a little bit, might be a little bit more what you're looking for. Now, the question is, what do you do about that? First, I'm going to go up here to the beginning, and I'm going to say, hey, what if on my center I just add something, or instead I say something along the line of font size 1em. Okay. Now I can go back and be like, looks okay on the iPhone. Looks okay. It might be a little too small for the iPad. And actually kind of looks okay on the big screen. But if you did want it bigger, your only real option is to put in media queries. So by default, you would set the font size to 1em. And then you can put in a media query that says at media screen and min width, maybe 768. Then you want it to be 1.2. Maybe you want it to be even bigger on a larger screen. So you can put in another media query to make it 1.3. So that's what's going on, is that it's inheriting the size, and it's just a little too big on your screen. And you'll kind of have to make the choice as to whether you want to modify the styling on the body, or if you want to modify the styling on just that center paragraph. Because if everything else looks good, don't mess with the body. Just mess with that one particular section right here, that class section. Okay? All right. So let me go back to the chat screen. Okay. And do we have the questions up someplace? Sorry, the Google Hangout questions. There we go. Okay. Oh, I can't post links in the chat. Thank you. I swear I'm learning something new every single time we do these chats. But you've given me enough.
Yeah, she can put it in. Okay. I mean, she could put it in the forum.
Okay. Yep. All right. So let's go back here. I'm going to go and. All right.
Should I screen share?
Sure. Go ahead and screen share.
Just that web page?
Sure. Just that web page is enough. All right.
Yep.
Okay. So I brought up the page right here. I really like that background image, by the way. I always like when people add a little something fancy at the top to kind of bring you in. And it's a nice selection because with the books, it goes in well with your technical writing. So the first thing I'm just going to do is go in and do a quick, should have done the whole page, but I'm going to do inspect, and I'm just not going to have you worry about it for a second.
Let me see. You don't want to show it?
Sure, yeah, go ahead. We'll switch so we can do the whole screen. Wait 1 second. Thanks.
Let me put this behind you, otherwise people are gonna have some headaches.
Yeah, we're all gonna need some aspirin after this.
There you go.
Okay, so I'm gonna close this back up again for just a second. So there's definitely styling here. I mean, it's not ignoring all of the CSS because I can see the colors and the different things along that line. And when I check your CSS, I'm just doing a quick look. What I was checking for was, hey, is there anything here where where they added browser prefixes? You know, the mods or the WebKit or different things like that. If so, that could change the look on different browsers, but I don't see anything like that here. So I'll close this up. I'll close this up. And the last thing I'm going to do is inspect. So I get one error right away. And that's just, hey, it looks like you're trying to include a favicon. And the favicon are those little pictures that you see up in the tabs. So Coursera has that blue kind of link in it. The web design for everyone, if you look up, you can see there's a little red arrow. So there is a problem that it can't find your icon, but that doesn't really have to do with the CSS. I can also just kind of scrolling down. I don't see a lot of things crossed out. When you see things that are crossed out, there's a few different reasons for it. My number one reason is because I spelled it wrong. And if you spell it wrong, it's not going to know what to do. The second reason is because the reason the HTML styling is crossed out is because, oh, you overwrote that by styling maybe something from the body. And then, hey, anything that you crossed out down there, it's just that cascading. It's saying, you've written 3 different rules for this one element in the page. I only want the top one. Okay. But from what I'm seeing right now, I'm not seeing any exact errors. So I'm going to switch back to the office hours chat and see if you can give me an example of something that isn't styling the way you were kind of hoping it would. Okay. And thanks. It looks like a few people are in there. Okay.
Oh, I should probably. You want me to go back to you?
No, stay here for just 1 second.
Okay, it's just gonna screen share this.
That's fine. Let's go back here for a second. Home, decorating, translation. Wow, you did a really nice job. This is a really complete page. This is really, really nice. I love the addition of the Google Calendar. And I understand that message right there, but you've got a lot of great content in here. But like I said, I'm not seeing anything that isn't styled. So that's really interesting for me. And I'm kind of curious what your usual browser is. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to see if you have if you can post something where you have a specific, although I'm going to kind of look around. And Melissa got on and said, and she had trouble reading the at home, but again, it shows up fine in mine. This is, I find this funny because I've been doing this for so long. So I've learned to see the humor in the fact that anything that do with technology, it's never going to work all the time. And so my hope is that as you start doing things like this, you're going to start to realize that it's not your fault. You didn't do something wrong necessarily to make these different things come up. It's all about the fact that we're all out there using different browsers, different operating systems that have different fonts. Little tiny settings can make things look different. And so going in and being able to be like, if something's not working, I can always take it out or add something in, can kind of help us do things along this line. But I will say right now, as I'm looking at your portfolio, it's excellent. This is an excellent job. I can't believe how much content you've put in. I'm always pushing with my residential on-campus students to put content in. It's really going to kind of lend itself well. I'm going to do this just for a second. It looks good, small and large. Everything's rephrased, although it's making the screen go crazy, so I won't resize it anymore. Sorry about that. Okay. Oh, I had a problem with the footer. Let's take a look. Okay, so I'll go back. I'm going to scroll down to the footer. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so I don't have a Google. Okay, so I'm taking a look at the footer down here, inspect, and I don't see anything crossed out. Do you have something specific about the footer that isn't working? I do see that it finds it. I can go in here and I can change the color without any problem. The height seems to be working. What happens if I make this 50 pixels? Not too much is going on, actually. Let's make it 150 pixels. All right, I do see that nothing is happening. Oh, wait, there it is. It was happening. I just wasn't scrolling. Never mind. Let's refresh this. I'm going to pop back over, see if you've given me an example with the footer. You'd given it a dark background with white letters, and that wasn't coming on Chrome. I'm going to make a guess, and here's what my guess is, because it's always hard unless we can recreate it. What I'm often saying is that we have this saying, at least here in the US, we call them helicopter parents. And so helicopter parents are the parents who hover over their children and make sure everything turns out okay. Everything will be fine. It doesn't matter. So browsers are kind of like the helicopter parents of programming. You can have errors in your code, but your browser will say, oh, that's okay. I know what you meant. Okay. So if it was working in one browser, but it's not working in another browser, there's a good chance that you actually had some tiny, small little typo. So I would put that code back in if you want to change it, and then I would run it through the validator and make sure that you don't have any links that aren't closed. Once you check your HTML, if that's correct and it doesn't show any errors, then you're going to go and open up your CSS. Move that code that you wrote for the footer and put it all the way on the top of the screen or the top of your file. The reason I say, and then check it, see if it works now. Because what will sometimes happen is if you have a typo in your CSS file and you don't realize it, it can mess up the styling for everything that comes underneath it. So a single semicolon that you forgot when you were styling maybe a div can actually mess up the rules for styling the footer, which are all the way down at the bottom of the page. So my recommendation is, one, go ahead and change that styling back to the way you want to play with it. And then two, run your code through your validator and make sure you've closed the footer tags and closed any tags that come before the footer. And then three, I would go back into that CSS and make sure there aren't any typos in that code or above that code. And while I gave you steps 1, 2, and 3, each one of those steps, make sure you write some code, stop, test it. write some code, stop, and test it, because it could be something really small that makes it work. And in the very worst case, the most frustrating errors that people get is that your browsers will do something called caching, C-A-C-H-E, I think I-N-G. No, there's no E in there, but it's caching. And what that means is that if you type in a URL and you say, go to this page, sometimes it goes and it grabs that page. Other times it says, oh, I remember this page. I'm just going to load it from memory. And when it loads it from memory, it doesn't actually make any of those changes that you put in your code. So sometimes if I change my code and nothing happens, I'll hit refresh on the page 3 or 4 times, or wait a second and press it again, and then poof, magically your page is changed. And the problem with this is that it's a horrible problem, because you keep changing your code thinking it's not working when it was perfectly fine the very first time. There you go. Oh, and then Pam was saying the exact same thing. Yeah. All right. Yay. I love when things get resolved too. It makes office hours worth it, even if we can help one person fix the issue they've been having. Okay. I know you said you had a few issues. One was that submission error. This one seems to be with the CSS. Keep them coming. There's never too many questions to ask. And if anyone else has a question as well, make sure to add it in there. Okay. Before I go on to questions, I did want to mention a few things. One is that I shouldn't use the word desperately, but I'm going to use the word desperately. We're going to be pretty desperately looking to recruit new mentors for the Web Design for Everybody course. I'd love to just get some new blood. It's really hard. It's not difficult to be a mentor, but it can be really time consuming, and answering the same questions over and over again, even when you really want to be helpful, can be exhausting for someone after a while. So later, if you're interested in being a mentor, definitely encourage you to contact Coursera, be like, hey, I'd like to be a mentor. This is especially true because I believe there's going to be a change in the capstones where they'll be offered, all these courses will be offered much more frequently. And so as many people as we can get out there helping each other out would be better. Okay, and there was just, you mentioned that Control and F5 is a forced refresh. If that doesn't work for you, make sure you do try some other things, because particularly in different countries and different keyboards, they can be different. So I've learned to not count on that too much. But if you're ever in doubt, you can always go and you can search for it. Put in your operating system, your keyboard type, and see what the different commands are. Okay? All right. I'm going to head back to the discussion forums and just kind of scroll around for a few more questions. All right. Go back here. Jean got that one. Oh, okay, so we have the I need to be graded, the screenshot. So again, we've been talking about CodePen is a great way to submit your code if you don't feel like hosting on your own URL. There are things that make it a little bit more difficult because attaching the images, sometimes I'm actually not even sure if you can use images unless you've upgraded to a pro version. And I really want to make sure that people don't need to invest any additional money into this course. So, if necessary, don't use any of your own images. Go ahead and do, again, I can use that term, absolute reference. You'd use an absolute reference to link to some sort of images that are already on the internet. You can include a write-up if you want, like I believe Melissa, I'll have to go back. Melissa said, you can always include a write-up and upload that to your CodePen as well. Or put your write-up right inside your front page. All right, add an extra page to your site that says review. And then when you're done being graded and you're ready to make this something that's public and out there for everyone, you can just delete that page from your navigation bar. Okay. I don't think I have new questions in week 6 here. but I'm going to scroll just in case. The cache. Some comments about the audio from last week. All right, I'm going to head back to the live office hours. Oops, sorry. So a few things. I was just curious. I know, I can't remember how many people are here, but I know I have Pam, Melissa. Can you remember me how you, Sand? Help me out there, Sai. Sandia, thank you. And I could have sworn we had someone else at the very beginning from Munich, unless that's somebody. Oh, we've got Montreal, Duluth. Yep. I don't know why I always love Duluth. If other people, as you're right here, if you would like me to take a look at your site, give you a quick critique, maybe some feedback, I'm happy to do that because we have about 20 minutes and not a lot of questions on there. So can you upload a PDF for write-up? We've got to use either a PNG or a JPEG, but what someone just mentioned they did is you can upload your PDF to your website, because I saw that you're hosting already, and just include either put a link to your write-up in your website, or just go ahead and in your comments section say, my write-up is located here, and include a link to that PDF. Okay. I'm going to go back up here for just a second. Okay. All right. I'll wait, see if I can get some more questions or people who would like me to take a look at their site and very kindly critique it during office hours. But in the meantime, if there aren't questions, what I can talk about is kind of the forward motion for the capstone, particularly for those of you who maybe aren't going to finish this time and you're watching office hours after the fact. There is a move to make it so that the capstone is just like any other course and you're not required to take the other courses before it. I'm curious if any of you have any thoughts on that, if you found that taking all 4 courses, somewhat in order made the capstone easier, if you perhaps already knew some things coming in and you would have liked the opportunity to jump right in and start coding your capstone right away. So these are just some of the changes we make as Coursera continues to look and try to figure out the best way to facilitate as many students as possible. On the upside, if we offer the capstone on a much more regular basis, people who don't finish in those 6 weeks will have other people around and waiting to grade their submissions. Okay. Let's see. Pam is just mentioning that her particular hosting site, free of charge, 5 gigs of disk space, and a pretty good cPanel. That's actually a nice thing to know. I've found that a lot of the places that offer free hosting, and it's great that free hosting is out there. I don't want to diminish it or say anything bad about that. But in that idea of you get what you pay for, sometimes the interface for uploading your files can be really cumbersome. So if you find a way using that cPanel site to upload, it's really useful to try different places, get used to the fact that some have a upload button, others have a check mark, others might have something you've never seen before. So playing with these things is a really good idea. Let me go right here. I've got evolution, or I'm going to assume that's org.uk, and I think there might be a space in there, but I'm going to take it out. So Sai, do I need to do anything, or?
Just, yeah. You want to show it?
Yep. Okay.
Levels.
All right, we all set? Oh yeah, the archery site. I remember we were working on the scoring page for how many points people got when they did their archery. My daughter actually went as a archer for Halloween this past year. It was a really good idea. The only problem was that you're not allowed to have any type of weapons at school. So she was an archer with absolutely no bow or arrow or anything, but she thought it was cool, so we'll take it. She's a little bit obsessed with Roman gods and archers and all that. So as long as she was happy, I'm good. All right, so let's take a look. Just click over here for a second. This is Melissa's page, right? Yes. All right. So Melissa's page here, right away, I like the fact that you have something different in your background. I don't know if you've used a background, it must be a background image, which is a kind of advanced idea a lot of people haven't used. You've got very clear navigation off to the side. Actually, I'm going to avoid resizing the screen for right now, so we can not do that. So the navigation off to the side, right away, that to me does say, oh, Melissa probably coded this by hand, because when people use templates, which again, completely valid option, over and over you see that the navigation is on the top. So this is a little bit different. Okay, back to the home page, history of the club. Now, one of the things you might, just as I'm looking at this, one of the things you might want to think about doing is changing the opacity of your background picture just a little bit. It kind of depends on if someone's looking on a big screen or on a phone. But I love the background image. You just want to make sure it doesn't make it any more difficult for people to read. For me, it's a little odd right now because I'm seeing a mirror image on the screen while I'm trying to talk to you. So we kind of look at that. But I'm looking at the line that said, sadly, it was not long before someone decided football was more profitable. I feel for you, but at one of the last universities I taught at, they actually just got rid of football. So to go from there to University of Michigan, where football is king, has been very interesting. Okay? And we're very jealous that you can shoot year-round. That is not something you can do in Michigan, at least in the outside. Okay? Upcoming events. I like this. Something you might want to think about if you decide to keep going and working more on your programming is turning this maybe into a details tag or something called, you can look it up, it'd be called an accordion. And so upcoming events, you could kind of open and close and not be showing everything by default, but then when you click on it, they come down. I really like this right now though. Oh, we got a back to top button. Nice, very nice. You kind of go through. So the back to top, somebody who's never done web design before, they might not realize that when they're grading your site. So it's always nice to include just a little note to people like click on the back to top button, particularly since some people, English may not be their first language, so it doesn't right away click to them that, oh, here's something that's interactive. I got my past events, beginners. All right, members area, and useful stuff. All right, kind of going through here. So, oh, okay, good. Then I was like, wait a second. As I was going through this site, I was like, wait, I haven't seen a lot of pictures yet. And then clicking on the gallery, I can see that you're going to be oh, wait, you do have some. So one of the things you might want to do is have some of these pictures just show up by default, so people don't have to go look for them. But it's, oh, again, always cool things. When I clicked on it, now this light box is different than the light box we saw before. In the light box we saw before, they had put all the pictures into a group. And so that kind of made it so that you could click from picture to picture inside. There'd be little arrows here. And yours, you just did as individual pictures, which again, great option. And you click on each picture on their own. So this popped up if people are looking for terminology to find out, oh, how did Melissa do this and how can I add it? The two terms you might want to look up would be lightbox and or some people refer to these more as like a modal, but modals tend to have information in them instead of just pictures. But this is all looking really good. If anybody doesn't give you 100%, I will track them down for you. Okay, because you've done a really nice job on all of this. You're not going to be able to see it, but I'm going to do a quick inspect so I can look at the responsive view. But right now, the way the computer's set up, you can't really see it. But Melissa's done a really nice job with the responsive view as well, where the pictures and all the different things resize. All right, I'm going to come back. Let's see if I can, oops, get out of here. Okay. I'm going to go back to the comments. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble scrolling through here. All right.
Hosting through GitHub?
Yes. Okay. So we looked at Melissa's site. It looks great. I've added a space of try to get to it list. Yeah, don't forget there's an endless supply of get to it lists that we all have in life. So make sure you don't forget about all the other things you need to do. So another couple of things that got mentioned. Pam, who had talked about her hosting, one of the things she mentioned, and I really want to point this out because it's very important, not just for web development, but to be honest, for any website you are ever on. And what she has here is X10 hosting also lets you specify your password and doesn't email it to you. Any place where you have an account, if you forget your email and there's a button where you can retrieve your email and it sends your email right back to you, that's a really, really bad sign. You do not want that to be the case. You want it to be that your password is so encrypted, there's no way to get it back. That instead, if you lose it, they're going to send you a link that lets you create a new password. Or maybe they'll create a new password for you, which is always annoying to remember, but very secure. So whenever you're using a hosting site, a banking site, any site at all, particularly if you tend to reuse passwords, make sure that it's set up so that it can never send you your password. Because if it can send you your password, that means there's somebody out there right now who can steal all those passwords. Okay.
So stop screen share.
What was that? Yeah, you can stop screen share. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So Liz mentioned that she's hosting through GitHub, and it said it was overwhelming at first, but I followed a how-to link. If I can, I'm going to try to find a good how-to link and include it in some of the resources for the capstone in the future. So if you're not aware of how GitHub works, a large chunk of people use GitHub as a repository. And so how a repository works is that you put your code up on the repository, and as you make changes, you do something called push. You keep pushing them onto the repository. So it keeps track of your original file and then all the changes that you've made over time. And the nice thing about it is that if you drop your computer, hey, it's okay, your code is still there, out there. So what some of us do when we're first learning to code is that maybe you code locally on your machine, and then once you get to a good part, you put your code up on the server. And then you work locally again, and as soon as you get to a good spot, you put it on the server again. Because if you're in like some weird intermediate stage where you have a bug and you haven't fixed it yet, you probably don't want to put that on your server, right? So you have this kind of in-between code that's not ready for prime time, but you also would be really upset if you lost it. So a repository gives you this place to save your in-between, not quite done code. And people don't normally go and take it from there. But GitHub can also be used for hosting your pages. The difference between using GitHub as like a repository would be if you gave somebody your URL and they typed it in, they would see a list of files. And if they clicked on your index.html file, they wouldn't see your page, they would see your code. So that is using GitHub as a repository. If you want to host on GitHub, well, then it works just like a regular server. You give somebody a URL, they click on it, and it takes to your what we call rendered page. So I think it was Liz. Liz, that is an awesome job of following the video. I have a lot of graduate students here at U of M who were still struggling to kind of get them to that point where they're confident enough to struggle through some of these learning processes. But then once you got it, you've got it. You're going to be able to use that for as long as you want to. Okay. Okay. Back here to Melissa, we were just mentioning, good. Yes, if you got 100% on week 5, that's kind of why I put the week 5 there is some people tend to be a little bit more anxious about what satisfies all the requirements, will I pass? And basically, my belief is as long as someone has worked hard and created something from scratch, this is not a comparison type course. This is not, oh, the top 50 portfolios passed and everyone else will have to resubmit. This is a chance for you to go out there. Just as I'm talking in this video, it is night and day from how I had to approach people in the HTML course. You know, we use words now, terms such as cPanel and hosting. I can inspect element and I feel that, hey, I'm pretty sure that they understand what we're doing. One of the downfalls of web design and technology and even doing a capstone is that after a while you become so accustomed to what you're doing that you forget, wow, I've really come a long way from that, you know, about me page, the ultimate frisbee page, all those different things like that. So we do have a question about, I have a link to Facebook page on my site. Should I open this page on the same window or open this page on a new window? So there's window and there's tab. There's two ways to look at it. From the accessibility standpoint, from what I've been reading, and it always changes, but from what I've been reading is they recommend that you don't open things in new tabs because it can make it very difficult for somebody to know where they're at. They were at a site, in their mind they had kind of figured out where the navigation bar was, where the different things are, and now you've put them in a completely new domain that they don't, understand if you opened a new tab. Like they don't realize that they have to close the tab to get back to where they want to go. From a peer grading perspective, it might be a little easier to have it go to a new tab because then people can quickly close it and go back to their window. So at the moment, there aren't any hard and fast rules, so it is kind of up to you as to how you would like to do it. But I would recommend that for anybody who hasn't heard of that before, it's still a really good idea to know how to do this. And how you would open things in a new window or tab is you add another attribute. So you may have href equals blah, blah, blah. You have something called target, and it's target equals, and then in quotes, you have underscore blank. It's really weird. Makes no sense. All right, but that's the command for it. And then if you put that in there, when someone clicks on your link, it won't load a new page in the same spot. It'll open up a new tab or a new window, depending upon how you have it set up, and do the page there. So, do I have any other courses? No. So this was, this was an interesting experience for me because I'd originally signed up to do this whole process with Dr. Chuck Severance, and we were going to do it together and kind of put together a web-based, the term is, if you're ever looking for it, full stack web development. So I would teach how you do this design part, and then the idea was that you would then go and take his courses on PHP about how to make, what happens when you hit submit on that form? Can we make a real contact form where it's saving the data and doing all these kind of back-end programming? But then we ended up splitting it up into these two courses. And so now whenever someone comes to me and says, Colleen, should I make a Coursera course? The first thing I ask is, how many courses do they want you to make? Because I would have loved to make one course and then go back and modify it and perfect it. And instead I made boom, 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 4 courses. And I haven't really had the chance yet to go back and perfect. So what's actually going to happen right now is I am going to actually be leaving work. I'm going to be leaving and taking probably about 6 months off to try to recuperate from the brain injury. So I won't even really be on the message boards. I'm going to have to find somebody to take care of all of that, which is why I'm trying to encourage new mentors. I'm hoping to do a little bit of work on improving the old Coursera, and then I probably won't be back and really creating anything or doing anything for at least 6 more months. And we're hoping that at that point we can look at what's going on, and it would be kind of fun to make some interesting courses. It would be, but I think I would maybe instead really focus on videos such as, hey, I'd be recreating what's out there a little bit, like, hey, let's figure out what GitHub is and how you use it. I really admire how many videos there are out there of people who are making training videos and trying to just explain things to people. I'm always learning something when I'm out there because that's the best way to do it. But again, if you're looking for new things to do, the girls develop it. I'm not sure. Oh, Melissa, I can't remember where you're at. I don't think you're in the US, and I'm not sure if Girls Develop It is universal. But it's a great site to just keep improving your skills. Meetups are a great place to improve your skills. And if you're really enjoying things like this, again, consider making some of your own YouTube videos about the things you've learned, the mistakes you made, and things like that. The back-end course, Dr. Chuck, I'm not sure he's actually completed it right now. I think he's working on it right now. And I will, when he's done, I will make sure to send out an email to all learners, past and present, and kind of let them know. There is a I believe a pretty popular Coursera course on full stack web development offered in one of the schools in the UK. So if you go ahead and do a search on responsive design, full stack, to be honest, a lot of it might be repetition at first from what you've covered with me. But I mean, wow, I always think repetition is really good when you're doing anything with technology or a new teacher, because they might explain it in a completely different way where you're going to say, oh, now it makes sense. Why didn't Colleen say it that way in the first place? But I will send out a message. You may want to just follow Dr. Chuck on Twitter if you have it. His Twitter handler is CSEV, C-S-E-V. And he's always kind of updating the different things that he's working on. Okay. I think I've grabbed most of the questions here. I think a lot of you have done, I haven't looked at all of them, but the sites I've been able to look at have really been impressive. I want to congratulate you on the different things you've done. Watch for an email from me. Chuck and I are trying to figure out if we can have some sort of class graduation reunion at some point, bring together a bunch of the people from Coursera who've been in our classes at some location where, more and more people can get to. In fact, I know that Chuck really wants to go to the UK. For me, it's a little harder because I've got the kids. But we'll definitely be looking into going on the West Coast and maybe going to some other places and getting a chance to meet people and say, hey, what worked for you and what didn't, and what kind of things can I do or he do or all of us here at U of M, what can we do to make these experiences really worthwhile for you, worth your time, and hopefully something that when you're done, you'll feel like you've contributed to your own cause and also be willing to go off and be like, hey, I'm going to go help somebody else with something now. That's why I do the courses. I really want to kind of just be like, there were people who helped me learn to code. Can I go do that? You are all now ready to go out and help each other, just like you've been doing in the chats. Okay. All right. So thank you very much. Enjoy. I keep thinking it's early in the week, but enjoy the weekend and good luck on submitting your final portfolios if you haven't done so already. Okay. Think we're good?
Yep. Go off.
Up.